in 3 parts.
Alright. We're gonna start with Twilight dying.
Okay. I drove a purple Dodge Colt. Okay. So obviously it was going to be named Twilight.
Okay. So here. Now, me and Devo came to BronyCon last year.
Yep.
And we took Twilight.
Yep.
And when we came last year, we arrived on Thursday at around 3 in the morning with a piece of the car hanging off the bottom of the car, shooting sparks along the road and creating the most horrendous noise as the sound bounced off of the tall buildings of Baltimore, Maryland.
That's called an exhaust system.
Nope.
It was the heat shield off of the alternator.
No, heat shield off the catalytic converter.
That's the same thing.
Didn't matter.
And so, the plan was, we were all like, hey, let's do Anthology 5 here at BronyCon 2015 in Baltimore, Maryland. So we're like, alright, let's get Twilight going again.
Yep.
And then,
the car had been, the belt on the alternator had been squealing for a couple of weeks, and I thought to myself, it's just squealing. It always does that when the temperature changes. Whatever, I don't give a shit.
She always squeals.
Like a pig.
Oh.
No comment.
Oh.
So I parked the car in the laneway, popped the hood. I'm looking. I look down and I'm like, doesn't look right. The alternator is skewed like that, and I'm like, maybe it came loose and it ovaled the hole that it mounted in or something like that. So I climb underneath and I start undoing bolts and I undo everything except the mount to the block. And I grab a hold of the alternator because I figure I'd just shift it back into place. And I grab it and it's like, and I grab it and the whole alternator mount on the block had sheared right off. No idea how. The whole mount just sheared right off the block and I'm like, well,
so I get this.
I can't fix that.
I get this message and he's like, this is what, a month?
A month ago.
Yeah, a month ago. 1 month ago. Twilight's dead. Rest in pieces.
Rip in peace.
Rip Twilight.
Yeah.
So he messages me and like, Twilight's dead. And we're like, oh, fuck, how are we going to get to BronyCon? So eventually, we only have one plan and no backup plans because this man right here is really bad at coming up with anything resembling a plan. So he's like, my only plan is beg for money. We request money from people. My life has been shitting on me for a year.
Since September last year. Long list
and
of nothing.
luckily, thanks to a lot of people around, we were able to raise some money. He buys the Saab, the silver Saab.
Yeah,
so that he
2003 Saab 9.3 Turbo. Great little car. I get it. I drive it home. I drive it for about 3 days. The alternator dies. So I find a used alternator. And I get a code scanner, and I scan the car, and it's like, oh, you're going to need this too, and you're going to need this too. And I'm like, okay, great. I buy the parts, but I can't get them until, like, Tuesday. So Wednesday, I start putting the car together. And I'm supposed to leave Wednesday night.
This man is supposed to be at our apartment Wednesday night.
So, I managed to get the car assembled, and my buddy Jeremy gave me a hand, and I'm backing the car out after it's assembled. He's like, something's hanging from the bottom of the car, and I'm like, really? And I get underneath, one of the gas tank straps decided to shear itself off. So the gas tank is hanging like this under the car, and I'm like, well,
couldn't drive 8 hours of that, huh?
This is like 9 o'clock at night.
This is Wednesday night.
Suboptimal.
This is Wednesday night. This man his head is about to explode. He is like, I'm supposed to be at Tyler and Todd's. I will fix it in the morning. I need a good night's rest. And then he tells me I'm going to be there by noon.
No, I said around noon.
You said around noon. You said, okay, you said around, to be fair, he said around noon.
Showed up at 2.
Now, no you didn't. You did. You showed up at 7. 7 p.m.
Oh, I left at 2. I left the house at 2.
Alright, so me and Tyler are like, alright, we were considering just like renting a car and being like, alright, your car's fucked, we'll rent a car, we'll go down with the rented car. But he's like, I'll be there around noon. So I'm like, alright, Devo, let's do this, fine, whatever. And so we sit around, we're like 11:30. No, but no Devo. 12, no Devo. 1, no Devo. This is about the time when I decide to get Vine.
15 vines later.
I got a notification that I put my first 20 vines
Literal
up onto
vine creative force.
Yeah, I got 100 loops of one of the vines. This guy shows up at 7 p.m. Knock, knock, knock on our door.
Can't you see we're making vines
So his
here?
side,
before I even left home, like I woke up at like 8 in the morning, and I start trying to figure out how I'm gonna fix this frickin' strap. I start calling dealerships, parts stores. Nobody can get the straps. Nobody. And nobody has them. Nobody can get them. Blah blah blah. And I call my parents and I'm like, I am losing my shit. What do I do? And my mother's like, why don't you just use a ratchet strap? And I'm like, fuck off. So
AKA, thank you, Mom.
Engineering.
I go to Princess Auto, the Canadian equivalent of Harbor Freight.
Princess Auto.
Yep, Princess Auto.
Thanks, Larson.
So I grab a nice heavy duty ratchet strap, and I try and find somewhere to latch it on. Can't find anywhere, and won't fit right. I end up taking it to a buddy's place and grinding all of the rubber off of the hook, and then heating it up with a torch so I can bend it in the right shape.
Okay.
And then hook it in, ratchet the frickin' tank up, everything's fine, and I'm like, I'm fucking leaving now.
Okay. Meanwhile, he messages me on Skype in the chat and he says, alright, I've got the tank on with a ratchet strap. I read this, I look up what a ratchet strap is. I desperately not tell this man because he will not go into a car with a gas tank held on by a piece of fabric. Because he's smart, unlike both.
Nylon melts with fire.
So we're driving down this entire time. I'm worried the gas tank's gonna fall off. This entire time, you're gonna check the gas. You're gonna check that strap before we leave, right?
No,
Why
it's
didn't
fine.
you tell me that before I got in your car? Go on.
Because a good story.
All right. So 7 p.m.
I show up.
He shows up at our house. We are like, what in the hell? You were supposed to be around noon.
And I'm like, shut up, get in the car.
Shut up, get in the car. So, we exit the front door of my apartment. We start going down the one flight of stairs to my apartment. I have my over-the-shoulder bagger. I'm like, all right, final check. And I go, I've got my money, I've got my ticket, I've got my passport. As soon as I say the word passport, this man just crumples. Right? He just, like a puppeteer that dropped the strings. He just,
Tyler's asking me, are you okay? Is everything all right? I'm like, no.
I thought he was having a panic attack because the car
I was.
And apparently he's like, no. I left my passport and birth certificate in Twilight, which had been towed within the last couple of days.
Executive producer credits.
Inside Twilight.
How do you think I got down here?
Lewd.
Anyway, so we decide, alright, we are going to go pick up Ozone, then we have to go back to Sarnia.
2.5 hours.
2.5 hour drive back to Sarnia the wrong way towards Detroit, and go and find the tow company that has his car so we can get the passport out of it. We phone up a bunch of the tow companies in Sarnia, Ontario, one of them called Blue Water Tow.
It's the first call he makes. He's like, who should I call first? And I'm like, call Blue Water. The cops usually deal with them. You know, if somebody had it towed, Blue Water probably has it.
So I phone Blue Water. I start talking to this guy. I'm like, we're looking for a purple Dodge Colt.
He repeats this like
I said
3
purple
times.
Colt, purple Colt, and he's like, all right, I'll get one of my guys to check for one, and I'll call you back. So we're like, all right. So I hang up. I call the next place. I'm like, we're looking for a purple Colt. Hang up. They said they'll check.
No, that was Captain Hook, and they were like, oh well, I can't check the computers until the morning.
And then Premier said they will check and then call back. So we're driving to Sarnia in the new car. And we get a call back from Blue Water Towing. And I'm talking to this guy, and the guy's like, yeah, we got your Colt. But you know, I'm gonna have to charge you
$100 cash.
You need to do $100 cash and a signed ownership of the vehicle.
And
then I'm like,
just a quick aside. In Ontario, when you sign the back of the ownership, whoever you give that ownership to
essentially owns the car.
Yeah, essentially owns the car. You're basically giving them the car.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power, kids.
Now, I'm talking to this man. I'm like, Devo, do you have the ownership? He's like, yes. And I'm like, yeah, it says it'll cost $100 cash. And then Devo just says, does this man sound really old? And I go, yes. And he goes, give me the phone. Grabs the phone from me and goes, Carson! You remember me? This is Chris Rush. He's like, yeah, Chris Rush. Yes. Give me my car. $100.
Yeah.
And so wait, so this is just like an incredibly, this all I know right now is this is just an incredibly old dude that owns his towing company. We get to Sarnia, we get to Blue Water Towing the middle of the night, right?
Yeah.
This is like 12.
I've got $100 cash on me.
We got $100 cash, it's 1 in the morning.
Truck pulls up.
But we decided to go to the police station first to make sure that it was legal for him.
Because this is, to me, like, $100 cash, give me a signed ownership, that's sketchy as hell.
It's sketchy. This guy is apparently very notorious for being a sketchy, crazy old man.
Very cheap.
Yeah.
So we pull out $100. We go mine now.
No, just a second. You know, I go into the cop shop and I ask the guy at the front desk and I'm like, and he's like, I don't know, it sounds all kind of fishy. It's 1:45. Come back in the morning.
I don't want to deal with this.
We're not going to deal with this tonight. And I'm like, seriously? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, whatever.
So, in lovely Sarnia, Ontario, the police officers decide that it's too late at night, they're tired, I don't want to do any actual police work, come back in the morning.
Car.
So,
no. We have no idea.
Okay.
We have no clue what's going on with the car at this point.
So
I think it's still in Blue Water.
We drive to Blue Water. Chris gets out of the car, walks in with the tow truck driver, comes back out.
No. I go in with the tow truck driver and he's like, I need $100. I hand him $100 cash and he's like, and I need the signed ownership. And I'm like, the ownership's in the car. He's like, okay, let's go find it. And I'm like, okay, great. And I'm like, why does he need a signed ownership? And I'm like, he's like, oh, so he can get rid of the car. And I'm like, I don't want him to get rid of the car. And he's like, oh. And I'm like, no, I'm not giving you a signed ownership. I want this car out of here. He's like, I gotta make a phone call. And so he's holding my money in one hand and he calls Carson in the other on his phone. And I'm like, whatever, I'm gonna find my fucking car. I got the keys, whatever. So I start walking through this fucking lot.
Yeah.
The front end of Twilight, I'd gotten in an accident last September. Started the bad shit.
Poor girl.
But, so the hood's crumpled. It's very obvious which car is which. So I'm walking through. It's not there. My black Colt hatchback is there. My blue Colt sedan is there that I already knew he had. And I'm like... And I turn around, and this guy's on the phone, he's like, I don't know, he won't give me the ownership, I don't know what to do, what do you want to do, Carson? And I'm like, where's the fucking car? And he's like, huh? And I'm like, where's the fucking car? And he's like, it's right there. And I'm like, purple Colt, where is it? And the guy points, and he's like, that's a Colt. I'm like, that's a blue Colt. That's a black Colt. Where's the purple one? And then he's like, purple Colt, Carson? He's like, purple. I'm like, he's purple Colt? He's like, oh, we don't have that. And I'm like, give me my fucking money. Give me my fucking money right now. And I like yank it out of his hands, storm through the building.
He just comes back, this little seething ball of rage. This little straight up Lord of the Rings dwarf rage. Just murder everyone.
You fit the character, man. He really did look like he was gonna try and
he just gets in, and he's like, no, fucking car. Bam! He's like, alright, what we're gonna do, I'm gonna get you guys a hotel, you're gonna go to the Chippecan, you're gonna sleep the night, we're gonna go to the other auto record yards in the morning, we're gonna find my car. So, me and Tyler and Ozone. Tyler, fuck off. And Ozone, we get to the Chippecan. The Chippecan is this like this kitschy little roadside inn, which has apparently been converted by the Ontario government for use in welfare cases.
Lucky you, right?
We get in there, this, like dirty little David Lynch-esque.
Pillows are about as thick as crackers.
Yeah.
And how was the murder mystery?
Yeah, so the bathroom door of our hotel room was clearly breached. There was no latch on it at all, and there was just cracks down the bottom of the door.
Dramatization. Can't you see I'm doing heroin in here?
The highest quality of balsa wood.
So we do a couple more vines while we're in there.
Yeah, of course.
We get a night's sleep. Devo said he's going to come back in 7, pick us up. He shows up at 8. says, I already like checked Premier, they don't have it. Let's get in the car, let's drive to the other places. So we go to the other auto wrecker, we go to Captain Hoofs, that's another towing company.
Didn't have it.
Doesn't have it. So we're like, uh-oh, maybe it got right to the auto wrecker. So we go to auto wrecker number 1.
Well,
doesn't have it.
We do the recyclers first. We do all 3 recyclers, and it's like, nope, nope. Last one says we don't take cars. Then we check the auto wreckers, and the auto wreckers say we don't have it. And I know the second auto wrecker wouldn't have it because they're lazy sacks of shit.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, next thing to do is go talk to my old neighbor. So we pull up at the house, and I start asking Bob. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Like, what happened to the car? And he's like, oh, well, one of your friends was by and like took a big box out of the trunk and I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, my fucking subs, the welder in the back seat, all of my tools.
Oh no.
And he's like, yeah, and then I went up to the cottage and came back and the car was gone. I figured you just towed it away. And I'm like, nope.
Alright.
So now I know the car's been stolen.
Oh my god.
So good job, Dex.
I was still trying to get that car from you. There you go.
So we drive up to the police station.
We find out he gets back from the dock. He gets back from his neighbor, gets in, he's like, car has been stolen. Me and Tyler and Ozan just start looking at each other going, whoa, fuck. He's not going to get his passport. He's going to go to the police station, report his car is stolen. What the hell are we going to do? It's already nearing 11 a.m. We were supposed to be there yesterday. What are we going to do? So we just accompany Devo in this trying time in his life to the police station. He's like, I'm going to report this stolen. Right next to the police station is a budget rent-a-car. So Devo goes in to the police station, talks to an officer that looks like Ron Perlman. Guy's like, it starts going, all right, my car's stolen. Here's the type of car, etc., etc. All the
provided all the information, made a basic report.
Meanwhile, me and Tyler and Ozone are sitting in his new car.
We're watching a druggie have a conversation on the phone, going like, "Yeah, I can get that on fucking Tuesday, but first you gotta get that to me on Monday."
Yeah, and so we're like, we gotta get the hell out of Sarnia, we gotta get on the road, maybe we'll just rent a car, there's a budget rent-a-car next place, you know, like, we feel like shit that Devo doesn't have his passport, but, you know, we've tried everything, we've gone through this entire morning, we went to like 12 places in order to find his car. So we go in, we're like, look, we're gonna go rent a car, we're gonna just, you know, go across the border, it sucks, man. So we start getting our stuff out of his car.
No, just... They're like, how do we get in the trunk? And I'm like, oh, the key is in the center console. Just open it. Just pull it out.
You didn't tell me it was in the center. You just said the key was in the car.
Yeah, the key's in the car. Sobs have the key in the center console, not on the...
Oh my god.
So...
Todd...
can't find it at all.
Can't find it.
He's sitting in the driver's seat, fumbling around the frickin' dash, looking for this fucking key. And I'm walking down the steps, looking at these three, and they're standing there. It looks like bunch of lost children staring at a car, like wondering, what do we do now? And I'm like, whatever. And I'm like, Todd, get out of the car, get out of the driver's seat, get in the car. We're gonna try and cross the border just with my driver's license. I don't freaking care.
So I get back in the car. For whatever reason, this guy is the most persuasive fucking guy in the planet.
This guy's got like max charisma and
like,
Fallout. Like,
he just rolled a perfect 20 because he's got 3 people that are ready to drop $200 on
like
renting
he's
a car.
talking to the he's talking to the Enclave computer, and he goes like, why don't you just let me across the border, man? Like, I don't have anything. But
He goes right to us and goes, alright, well, we're going to go to the border. I'm going to try and cross with just my license. It's going to be better with 3 people that have their passports. Let's just try that. And for whatever reason, something clicks in our brain going, okay, that sounds like...
So they all pile in the car.
We all get the idea. This guy drives to the border. We pull up to this really nice young border security person at the American border crossing.
She's very polite.
She's very polite. He hands her 3 passports and a driver's license. And she starts taking them and he goes, now before you look at them, one of those is just my driver's license because my car just got stolen and my passport was in it and we're going to a pony convention.
No, and we're going to Baltimore.
We're going to
And she's like, what are you going to Baltimore for? I'm like, a convention. What kind of convention? I'm like, a My Little Pony convention. And she's like, they have conventions for that? And I'm like, yes. And she's like, and you guys are going, and I've got a vinyl scratch plushie on the dash, and I'm like, yes. And she's like, okay, give me a minute. And she's like, so did you already report the car stolen? I'm like, yes. She's like, okay. And she's like, so if I call the police? And I'm like, yeah, no. If you call the Sarnia police, yeah, they've got it on record that the car is stolen. She's like, okay, give me a minute. She turns and she starts fucking about on the computer. She hands me back all 3 passports and my driver's license, but on my driver's license is this big orange sticker. And she's like, because you don't have your passport, you've got to go inside and they have to verify that you're a Canadian citizen, but just go over there and go through
and wait.
And it begins.
And so now we get in this line.
How the fuck? Oh my god.
How is the morning? How is it
For God's sake. They pull us off to the side. They're like, so we get another guy that comes up to us. He's like, hey, what are you going to the States for? And we're like, we're going to a convention. He goes, what's a convention? It's a My Little Pony convention. He goes, what? And he's like, all right, well, what do y'all do for a living? And so we all tell him what our jobs are. And he goes, all right, well, you're going to line up in there with your orange piece of paper. I'm going to just search your car. Give me your keys. So he hands over the keys, starts going.
Left him in the car.
Left him in the car. We left our phone in the car.
We made sure to tell him that the key was in the center console, not in the steering console.
We're waiting in this line. There's a Nexus line, so they get priority. So 2 people go in front of us.
Yeah, and we're standing there waiting.
We're standing there waiting and waiting and waiting. And this man is just shaking. He's just I'm also shaking, partially because of lack of sleep, partially because I'm also nervous as hell that I'm trying to get in the United States with a man that doesn't have his fucking passport.
For context, I'm cool as fuck.
Tyler looks like a scared
I'm
child.
dressed much like terrified. Except I have a bean trill hat on.
So we're standing there waiting. We've been waiting for about 20 minutes, and this little old lady, dressed in a full-on like customs uniform, like flak jacket and everything. She comes walking up and she's like, "Okay, we're gonna go around the building into the back," and I'm like, "Okay." And Todd's like,
No, we're fucked.
so we follow her around the building, and it just turns out to be another set of desks in the back. So I'm standing there, I hand her 3 passports and a driver's license, and she's like, when was the last time? Well, she asks a few questions about the convention, a few questions about what we're doing there, and then
making sure that we're not making any money off of this.
And it gets to the point where she's like, okay, now, when was the last time? She looks at me, when's the last time you crossed into the States? And I'm like, probably December. And she's like, okay, do you know the date? And I'm like, no. And she's like, that'll make it a little harder, but it's okay. And I'm like, last year, same time of year, I went to the same convention. And she's like, okay, great. So she looks it up, finds my passport, fills out all the information, copies all these jackasses' information into the computer, hands us all of our paperwork, and says, okay, see you later, and lets me into the States.
No, there is way more to that.
Not really.
Yes,
oh, wait,
there is.
I want to hear this. There's a really great part with a guy at a desk who goes, come on, let me do this. I'm very active, alright? So he goes, isn't My Little Pony for girls? No, for kids. Kids? Is that a kid thing? Like, what are you doing?
What's the matter with you?
And Chris, being a based motherfucker, explains off the top what bronyism is.
I am an encyclopedia of useless
why
information.
people would be interested in this show. He talks about families, and connecting, and Lauren Faust, and all that shit.
And the guy is literally like just staring at me, listening the whole time.
So this anthology's like a Jackass thing? Yes.
I'm like, no.
Jackass.
I'm like, more like Robot Chicken.
And he
goes,
like,
yeah,
that's pretty funny.
Yeah. Like, it just clicks for him all of a sudden. It's like, okay, yeah.
So she leaves.
Totally on your side.
She leaves to do a final check of his car. Comes back a few minutes later and goes, hey, where's Chris? Chris, come up here for a minute. And he walks up and goes, she goes, what's up with your hood? And he's like, oh, well, you know, I own a fucking shit car and it's broken his ass. And she's like, well, can you open it? And he's like, yeah. So he goes out there with the other guy, opens the hood for him, realizes there's pieces of the engine that aren't supposed to be.
There's a hose that goes from an air pump to the intake box, and I forgot to put it on. So I'm just like,
click. Luckily, I had my ticket for this because she went through the bags, found the ticket, found that we were actually going to a dumb brony convention for some stupid reason. And was like, alright, cool, well, I put it back in your bag, Todd, that one's yours, that was yours.
Time in the rough, my friend.
Make sure that you print out any sort of flyers for these kind of things if you're going to cross the border. And we're like, okay, great, thank you very much. She's like, get on your way. We get in the car, we start driving.
We'll get there.
We pull off, get gas, that's when we have our...
Devo.
It's not over yet.
No, we don't have anything else really after that.
We have a time.
No, after that, it's pretty smooth sailing. We got in the
Drove to
car
Baltimore.
and started driving.
Yeah,
Can I just say something?
That's fine.
Pitch this to Universal and have the movie called
This is a
Carjacked.
fucking movie.
Please, this is too good.
I just want to say that the most important parts of this story...
Seth Rogen will play you.
The most important parts of this story are, one,
Dad! Morty,
old as shit,
sit down.
the oldest shit crippled colorblind auto
He is my
wrecker.
Morty.
And two, the fact that this man decided, fuck it, I'm gonna have balls of steel and just present my driver's license
He
to
was like
cross the
full
border.
on fucking. He was like,
Here's my
Who's gonna
driver's
stop?
license,
What are you
let
gonna
me
do?
into the country.
You're speaking English. We're Spanish.
worst case
And we're white
scenario.
people.
Chris looks Todd right in the eyes. He goes, worst case scenario.
You know,
They turn us around.
For a
I
few
drive you
hours,
to
he was
budget.
arriving at budget.
Yeah. I'll just drop you off, you know.
That's the climax of the movie right there.
That was like second
Crossing
act
the border,
climax.
the boys are back.
And then,
Betty
last
White
little
can play
thing.
the old lady.
last little thing is Chris insisted that I keep the avoid toll roads on my GPS. So that's why it took us 10 hours instead of 7 hours.
Cheap bastard.
No. Before, you see, from Sarnia to Baltimore is 10 hours. If you go across Port Huron, it's 9 3/4 hours to go by Buffalo from Sarnia. From your house, it's 7.5 hours.
That's a lie. I looked it up on Google Maps and it said it was a 5-minute difference going from Niagara to Baltimore and from Sarnia to Baltimore.
So from Niagara to Baltimore.
It's a good story,
Sarnia to
though.
Baltimore.
I like to say that at the same time.
When do the hot
We'll
chicks
send it to
show up?
Universal.
You can dig it up right now on your phone. I know that's not true. But either way,
Story's gay.
it's a good scenery.
And so then I just spent the entire 9 hours in the car terrified that the gas engine would fall out.
So anyways,
And now we're here.
Now let's watch the
anyways, welcome to BronyCon. What's been a journey?
That was a great episode.
Welcome to BronyCon. Was it fucking worth it?
No.
Welcome.
Here, all right.
All right. Well, so anyway.